This video is sponsored by Movement. Use the discount link in the description for 15% off. Cities are awesome. Well, good cities at least. But how do we know a good city from a bad one? Not being able to differentiate between the good cities and the bad ones is the reason that there's still a lot of people who say they hate cities. They don't hate cities, they just hate the bad parts about cities, like traffic, cramped spaces, strip malls, endless parking lots, and a lack of greenery. I don't blame them. Not many people want to live in high-rises. The issue with a lot of cities is that there's no middle ground between high-rise and suburban living. In this video, we will go through the urban planning and architectural elements of 5 cities so that you could potentially apply some of the techniques you will see to your own Minecraft city. All the cities you are going to see were submitted for the top 5 series, and since there were only 5 submissions, I will be showcasing them in no particular order. Before we jump into it, if you don't mind clicking the like button, it just helps with the channel grow through the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you like this content and you want to see more of it, consider subscribing. Alright, let's start it off with this giant project from the Build the Earth Mindfact team. The city that was submitted for this series is none other than New York City. Not only is it the most populous city in the US, it also has the highest population density, which allows for some great public transit. Alright, so making a real life build is tough, so how do they actually manage to do it? The answer is using satellite images and overlaying them into Minecraft. They also use the Build the Earth collection of mods that allow them to build above the regular height limit. New York City uses a grid system of roads, which makes a lot of buildings feel like walls along a street. This can be a bit overwhelming for somebody who has never lived in a city, but for the 9 million people that live there, I'm sure they've gotten used to it. The urban planning of New York is very complex. When you look at the skyline, you might notice something very distinct about it. It has 2 sections of taller buildings. This one here is Lower Manhattan, and this one up here is Midtown. Why would they not just have the skyline spread out evenly between the two? It's likely just for the sake of good urban planning, which gives the areas unique identities, but there's also a theory about how the soil in the central part is potentially not strong enough to withstand the force of super tall towers. Either way, it makes the skyline very unique. New York urban planners actually have this really cool system where developers have to buy the air rights from surrounding buildings to be able to build super tall towers. Once they purchase the air rights, they can stack them on top of each other for their own building. Given the insane population density, it inherently makes New York City a very walkable place. Combined with great public transit, even with aging infrastructure, it makes it a very easy place to live without a car. As far as what people can do here, there are plenty of parks, a handful of trails, and an insane amount of tourist attractions. It's New York. The real question is, what can't you do? If you want to join their Discord, you can use the link in the description. For all the cities with social media accounts, I'll add the links in the description as well. Next up is the city of Shmar by Homie Train. This city is inspired by Chicago, and you'll be able to recognize that pretty quick by the layout and the overhead train line. Homie Train actually told me that the first 4 years of this project were built on Xbox by hand. The city has a main park with this nice statue in the middle. Chicago kind of has the same thing where you have this flat park surrounded by giant towers on the edge. Making parks can be tough, but the easiest way is to plan out some paths, green spaces, and add in some decorations and attractions for the locals, and it isn't too bad. There's a handful of view corridors in the city too, looking down the streets towards the park. What are view corridors, you might ask? View corridors are planned areas of empty space through an urban area that allows people within that corridor to see a focal point at the end. The bridges here are really well done, nicely detailed, and it has some realistic structural elements. There's a handful of lowered pedestrian areas near the water, just like in Chicago. Back to transit for a second. They included an overhead train line that is based on the Loop in Chicago and passes above the streets and goes around the downtown core. There's plenty of streetcar stations blended in too to make transit even faster and more efficient. People tend to skip the infrastructure and go straight to making twisty skyscrapers, but I promise you right now, if you do that, your city is not going to turn out the way you want it to. Good, well thought out urban planning will make your city great. There is no way around this. A way you can make your city even better is by adding community amenities that are in easily accessible areas. This could include basketball courts, skate parks, or basically anything else. One of the key components in a good city is to keep people interested in the small details. This city did a great job of this. Shmar is an awesome city, and it was super fun to explore. Alright, up next we have, oh, wait, do you hear that? Oh, I know what that is. It sounds like the sponsorship segment. Here are some watches that Movement sent me. I've been wearing them every day and I can confidently say that they are all super nice, and you can also get 15% off by going to mbmt.cc/alpine or clicking the link in the description. But Alpine, don't you always have to say nice things since they are sponsoring this video? Well, the funny thing about that is I actually approached them first because I've been wearing a movement watch daily for the past 4 years, and I only partner with brands that 1, share the same values that I do, 2, make great products that I actually use, and 3, have products that are high quality and are a reasonable price. Now, the real question is, why should you wear a watch? If you carry your phone around with you everywhere, shouldn't they be obsolete by now? Nope. Here's the thing about watches. Not only can they tell time, it makes you appear significantly more professional and or stylish. When you look at somebody wearing a watch, you subconsciously trust that person more because it communicates that they are punctual, independent, and can be relied upon. Now, Movement let me choose 3 watches to have, so I chose them to fit basically any occasion. This one here is for when I go biking, go to the gym, or do any type of exercise or outdoor activity. This gold one is great for casual wear and for going out with friends. This silver one is a great classic watch that you can use at an office or in a professional setting. Alright, that's it for this segment. If you're interested in browsing through the collections, even if you don't feel like buying anything right now, you can use the link in the description and it'll auto-apply a 15% discount. It also works if you type in mbmt.cc/alpine. Alright, next up we have Loqua City by Raw Pasta, CXOM, Chris Grimm, and Night Owl. There was lots of inspiration in this city, and it was really easy to get curious because of the fantastic planning and builds. If we look at a map of the city, it looks pretty similar to a certain Canadian city. This would make sense since they used Vancouver as one of the 13 cities of inspiration. This area here is known as the Canal. This has a lot of pedestrian areas, lots of shops and restaurants, and it keeps people busy. I really appreciate that they have multiple levels of walkways so that you can get up close and personal with the water. There's lots of greenery, lots of trees, and lots of shade around too, because people need that connection to nature. There's a lot of mixed-use buildings with retail at the base. A nice feature is that there's a lot of windows in this city, which means there's a lot of nice views. The roads are well detailed and they are pleasant to explore. The city has lots of transit, including buses, ferries, and metro. One thing I found particularly impressive about this city is that they actually use fire codes in buildings, and they have utility rooms and service rooms. So the architecture of this city itself is also planned out with a blend of buildings from the 1800s all the way to 2040. I can see a lot of Ottawa, Vancouver, and Victoria in these builds. They did an amazing job with the public spaces, lots of waterfront areas, trees, and greenery. They absolutely nailed the elevation changes, which makes it really intricate and super fun to explore. One of my favorite buildings in the city is the Wharf. It's more of a historic building that has not been hidden from visitors, so if it were a real city, this place would be super popular. There's a nice, wide beach that gives people a place to hang out and relax. The area around it also has lots of shops, restaurants, and there's a nice boardwalk. The last thing I want to show you is the attention to detail, which I personally believe to be the best part of any city. You've got some great interiors, lots of small spaces to explore, and they even have alleys behind a lot of buildings to make it feel real. Awesome work to everybody involved with this project. If you want to check out their Instagram, there's a link in the description. Welcome to Voxton by the Voxel.town build team led by Black Jasmine. There's lots of inspiration in this city from Los Angeles, San Francisco, Dallas, and a whole bunch more, mostly on the western coast of the United States. I was able to find a lot of really interesting places and builds when I explored. One of my favorite places was this street here, where it gives off a super west coast vibe, mountain town vibe almost. There's a lot of great looking roads and a bunch of small details to keep visitors interested. For everyone watching, adding variation to the height of buildings makes your city more complex and a lot easier on the eyes. These builders did a great job of this because the city feels very realistic. This mid-rise here is one of my favorites because there's balconies, it's a perfect height for the area, and the build itself is just super clean and well designed. If you explore this place for yourself, you'll quickly see lots of trains and train tracks, not just for passengers, but for cargo too. The realism on these builds are awesome. You have fire escapes, first floor shops, and they all look like they could realistically fit into an American city. Obviously, once you get up to the area with the Japanese influence, the style changes a bit, but maybe there's some history behind it. If you explore deeper into the city, you'll find some gas stations, more train lines, and a handful of parks scattered around. There's some bike lanes too in case you don't feel like driving. They did a good job of having trees along the major roads. When you have trees along the side of a road, it gives the sense of scale to the buildings. If you're building your own Minecraft city, I would highly recommend doing the same. Trees give urban dwellers a sense of connection to nature, it provides shade, and it gives a sense of scale to the buildings around them. There's this big river in the middle of the city, and they added quite a few boats and decorations around it to make it super cozy. It's a very nice city to get lost in, and you can explore it for yourself using the IP on the screen. If you want to check out their Instagram, there's a link in the description. Alright, last but certainly not least is the Building Toronto project by Game Fruit Pulp, and is currently being worked on by a whole bunch of builders. Alright, so this is a recreation project that aims to rebuild the city of Toronto. I've talked about Toronto quite a bit on this channel, and one key thing I always point out is the distinct line of towers that makes up the skyline when looking from the east or the west into downtown. Toronto, at least the central part, has some pretty solid urban planning and transit. The thing about Toronto Transit is that there's a whole lot of people that work downtown that don't drive. Toronto and the GTA have these things called GO trains and GO buses that act as rapid transit to and from downtown. This makes it significantly faster to get downtown, especially because you can just go to your local station, hop on a train, and you can be there in no time. I believe the city has full interior, which is absolutely nuts and is a crazy amount of work. Every little detail that you can find in real life downtown Toronto, you'll likely find here too. They have all the traffic lights, HVAC systems on the roof, and all those pesky curved roads. For everybody watching, I want to point out something here that every single Minecraft city should have. All it is just the small details of adding some traffic and some other little events or secrets around the city. Now, they have all these fire trucks and firemen here because I think there was an actual fire here at this exact spot. So they decided to recreate it and give the city an event for the people to check out. Just north of the BMO tower is this tower called the INDX tower. If you've been following the channel for a while, you might recognize it because I'm the one that built it. I want to give a special shout out to the builders who furnished the interior. The city is scattered with a lot of parks, which are well detailed to make you feel cozy. Everyone on this team did an amazing job for this. Overall, the city is incredibly detailed, very well planned, and a ton of fun to explore. If you're from Toronto or have ever visited, I would highly recommend checking it out for yourself using the IP on the screen. Also, my friend Game Fruit Pulp has a YouTube channel that talks all about this project, and he has a lot of super interesting videos. I'll add his channel link to the description if you want to check him out. Anyway, that's the end of the video. If you want to help me pay my rent, you can check out Movement's watches using the link in the description or going to mbmt.cc/alpine for 15% off. Also, maybe you'd even consider following my Instagram because I'm trying to get to 10K so I can post links on my story.